Awesome. It's 8:30. We'll wait a little bit for people to come in, but we'll just go ahead and kind of talk about what we're going to do. We're going to probably stick to like an hour. Probably won't go too much farther than that. And yeah, we're going to basically go over Blender's graph editor. We're going to go over some really cool things. You can text in the chat now that I can see it. And it's gonna be easy. It's gonna be fun. This is a part of a program that we're doing just to kind of kickstart live sessions. And this week and next week are both totally free, just like this. And we'll have some homework. We'll have some fun things that you guys can do along with me. And then after that, we are doing part of the subscription program that comes with everything in the Motion Designers Academy catalog, as well as future live sessions. So if you're interested in that, if you have fun here, definitely worth checking that out. So keep that in mind. And yeah, like I said, we're going to have a really easygoing time in Blender. It's going to be fun. I will keep an eye on the chat, and you guys can ask questions along the way. I'll probably try to get to everything at the end and answer all the questions and go over some ideas and homework and theory on what to actually do with the graph editor and how to kind of apply it in other instances. But outside of that, I think we're ready. Are you guys ready for for some time in Blender? I've got a default scene. I have not seen a default scene in so long. It has been a long time. My Blender is like custom to what I just kind of do every day, and it is horrific. There's so many windows. I don't use the tabs up top, and so it's awful. But anyway, let's just get right into it. Only 3 minutes in. Woo. Okay. So, yeah, the graph editor. Let's just pull it up. Let's just pull it up and see. Totally demystify this guy. And if you guys are in Blender with me, or if you're interested in just like joining along, let me know, and I can slow down. I can talk and do some other things, or like kind of show a little bit more. Just let me know if you're in Blender right now. So yeah, let's see. Okay, there we go. Awesome. Nope, no, that didn't work. Okay, anyway, sorry. So we're in Blender, and we're gonna totally just open the graph editor right up, right here at the top. Change it from timeline to graph editor. And if you haven't seen this thing before, it is basically a timeline. It's exactly what you would expect to see. It has all of your frames. I think you can change these to seconds, maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, this is exactly what is happening in your scene. Not a huge difference. The big difference, though, is when you start keyframing things, and that's what we're going to be going over today. So we've got our basic scene, our cube. I don't have anything against it. I don't have anything against it, but I do almost always try to set up two 3D viewports, and one is the camera, and then the other one is the actual scene. And that just kind of keeps it nice and simple for me. And then what I like to do is hit backspace on these values and then totally reset the camera, because I don't know why it's in this weird place. It's just like off to the side, like right here, aiming down with these mystical values. Maybe they just know something that I don't, which is totally possible. So all I'm doing is changing all those random values to like a really simple -7 on the Y. The reason why I use -7 is just because it kind of like clicks in your brain. Negative being backwards, so like you're moving the camera backwards away from the center point. Like for instance, if we had 7 instead of -7, it would be right here. So I like to use negatives, just a preference thing really. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to social or vertical format. Really easy, just changing the values right here in the output settings. And thanks, Damien. We demand deleting the default cube. I will delete the default cube just for you guys. But unfortunately, this whole this entire live session is based on the cube for ease and simplicity. So I have to add the cube back, which I know is another thing that people do for some reason. I don't know. So anyway, I got the cube in here. I'm gonna delete it one more time just so that you guys can follow along if you're following along. And yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and just get right into it. So we have our cube, we have our camera, and then I'm going to show you how I like to set up my camera. And this is, again, totally preference, not a big deal. All I do is add an empty cube, and then I will move that on the Y. And if you don't want to move or hold down Shift or hold down Control when you move, you can just come in here and make sure that it's on the same spot that your camera is. And then all I'm going to do is, with both selected, the cube being selected second, so it's like this orange color, I'm going to hit Control P and just parent it. So all that does is it parents our cube, or parents our camera to our cube. So when you move this empty cube, you can move the camera. Pretty simple. The power in doing that comes from when you actually add another empty. So this time it's going to be a sphere. These empties can be anything. This is just, again, total preference thing. But the power comes in when you go in and on your camera, you add an object constraint in the constraints tab here, and you go to track to, and you click target, and you select that camera, or that empty. Now, watch what happens when I start moving this guy, the original empty. We are totally focused, and we have really nice, professional looking panning. Now, I say professional reluctantly because you can definitely make this look not professional, but it is smooth. It's buttery smooth. You can do a lot with this, and you don't have to worry about adjusting your camera consistently on the rotation scale, which luckily, if you follow along, you won't ever have to deal with that. But if you kind of do it yourself and make your own way, which is totally fine, you will find that your camera rotation, especially in the graph editor, does not like you at all. I learned that the hard way. So with that said, and then one more thing I like to do just to get ahead of it entirely is our depth of field. And we're going to have a lot of fun with depth of field because there's like a couple of fun, trendy effects going on right now that are super easy and totally simple to do in a project like this. So all I did was depth of field, clicked on our empty, which again, a total preference thing, but I like to name my stuff MT. I know it's so creative. It's so dumb. It is an old habit that I got from Mentesia XYZ way back in the day. He was naming his stuff, and I named my empties MT. Laugh about it. Get over it. I'm so sorry. But that's what we got. So we got our empty focus, got our empty control, we got our camera set up, and then the very last thing that I like to do for this, I know setup is important, it takes a minute, but it's definitely worth it in the long run. All I do is I go to depth of field, lens, camera, viewport display, show. Again, we're in the camera settings, viewport display, show limits. Doesn't seem like much happened. There's this weird line here. But what you might notice if you scale down your cube, or maybe just move it entirely, is that you now have this weird cross symbol. And what that tells us is we go into render mode here. And there's no, here we go. Okay, rotate the cube slightly. What it means is that our camera is focused specifically on our focus. So you'll see it kind of moves along with it. Again, we're looking at the little yellow plus sign. What's that for? Why does it matter? It's important because that is our depth of field. So now not only do we have our camera focusing entirely on this empty object, we have also our depth of field, which is controlled by the empty object. Total, just preference, but it makes your life so much easier and so much simpler in the long run. And just to reiterate this effect right here, that's just Control V, total habit, sorry. Just to reiterate this effect a little bit more, I'm going to take down the depth of field to like 0.2 and the f-stop. And we're not really seeing a lot here. Oh, that's because that's, wait, yeah, that's aperture, right? Yes. Yes. Ah, there it is. Very slightly blurry. If we switch over to cycles, which again, you don't have to, it's much more apparent right there. We're gonna go to GPU compute. It's pretty standard stuff. I like to turn off noise threshold and turn on denoising. Again, with denoising, you don't really need a lot. And let me know if I'm going too fast. I'll check the chat here. Yes, this live will be saved. And yeah, okay, that is our scene. I know it took a minute, but we have it all set up, and now we're gonna go straight in to the graph editor. Let me triple check. It looks like yep, okay. Just gonna go ahead and reset those values right there. Keep the cube kind of rotated, totally fine. And okay, Control S to save, and we are good to go. So the very first thing we're gonna do is we're just going to mark our graph editor. And this is just an editing thing. It might not make sense at first, but it definitely, again, is a save, like just cost of life benefit. Like it makes your life so much easier. So all you have to do is come down here to the graph editor, press M to make a mark, and F/01 is just the frame that it's on. The process that I like to go through for this is almost always working within the frames per second. So professionally, you almost always want to go 30 frames per second. Film kind of sticks in the realm of 24. Again, really sort of just a preference issue. So I like to stick to 30. It's a little bit smoother because you have more frames in an actual second that's happening. And it also is easier math because I am terrible at math. Sorry. So I will go 2 seconds. So we have 0, 30, and 60. 60 frames equals 2 seconds for those who are also bad at math. Then you'll make another one, or I will, at 120, and then you'll also go up to 180. And all that does, the only thing that you're doing with the graph editor here is just making sort of a mental mark. Like these are sort of areas to flow. These are kind of like your bounding areas. It's like putting in the shapes on a painting before you're ever worried about any details, right? Like that's really what we're hoping with this. Now that we have that, we can start going through what we want to do. And the idea for this sort of session was to kind of make some shapes dance with the cube. They're, with motion graphics, it's really dependent on the actual motion. So you don't, we'll get more into aesthetics, but it's not, it's you can make anything look really great if the right emotion is applied to it, and I'll show you that here in a second. So, very first thing, all we're gonna do is hit I, and you can hit I in the viewport, or you can hit I. Oh, maybe not. Well, you can definitely hit I over here, but I like to hit I in the viewport because this little drop down comes up, and you have a ton of different options. They almost all mean relatively the same thing. Starts with location, rotation, scale, and then it goes location and rotation, scale, location, so on and so forth. The main one that I am almost always using is just location, rotation, or location, rotation, scale. For this, we're primarily going to be using location, rotation, and scale. I will get into the individual aspects of those, but just know that it's keyframing all 9 of these values, right? So you have your X, Y, and Z for location, rotation, and your scale, right? So all of those things have been locked in. Just so we're aware. Now, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to frame 60, and we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna finally have fun, guys. All we're gonna do is we're gonna move this cube slightly forward, rotate it, and kind of scale it. And that might not seem like a lot because it's not really, but when we start messing with the Bezier curves, it will be really, really fun and cool. So now I've moved it, and I've made sure that I'm on frame 60. And all I'm going to do is press I, and I'm going to keyframe the same places that I've already keyframed. So location, rotation, and scale. Boom. Oh no. We have scary curves. Except they're not scary. They're really pretty, actually. You'll always want to make sure that you hit normalize. The thing that I didn't even know this. I did not even know this for an embarrassing long amount of time. But the normalize function, all it does is it normalizes your curves to your view, right? So if we hit normalize again, or the refresh button, it just takes it down to basically be where your view's at. So if we were to scale in right here, really super close, and we hit normalize again, it will just pull everything back up for you. And I had no idea. I always thought that you, for some reason, had to just have everything in view, and you just had to work with it. You had to you had to do this for so long, and it was so painful. Anyway, so now if we go back to the beginning, which you can do by hitting shift back or shift back arrow, and hit space to play, we have our first keyframes. Boom. Beautiful. We're moving. Looks great. Totally simple, totally easy. Your regular default interpolation, which is the curve inside of the graph editor, should be Bezier. If it's not, for whatever reason, all you want to do is hit A to highlight everything and change your interpolation mode to Bezier. Why do you want Bezier? Almost all standard motion graphics use Bezier because they're smooth and pretty and everybody else uses them and everybody's used to it. So stick with your Bezier. It's Bezier friend, your best friend. Stick with your Bezier friend. These other guys are kind of like the misplaced child for Blender. I've tried to use them before, and they work in a pinch, in a really, really, really tough pinch. But you normally do not want to use them because you can craft better Bezier curves by yourself. And I'll show you exactly how to do that. But you really do not need to ever use any other interpolation modes outside of constant, linear, and Bezier. Now, I might eat my words. There might be a ton of people who use bounce. That's totally fine. Bounce is kind of fun sometimes. It does some weird stuff. But the vast majority of the time, you will use your best friend, Bezier. Moving on. Now that we have our frame 60, which again is under this marker, which is totally just pleasant and nice to look at. On frame 120, we want to make our next move. So again, all I'm going to do is I'm going to move our cube back into focus, which is kind of where our empty is, like we talked about earlier. And except this time, I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to scale it down on all the axes, and then I'm going to scale it on the let's see. Let's scale it on the XX. So, fun fact, if you are using an object and you want to scale it on its original x-axis, which is, specific to that object, all you have to do is hit S and then XX or ZZ or YY. I use this all the time. It's so beautiful because you don't have to think, you don't have to reset anything. It's gorgeous that way. So all I've done is I've moved the cube back into frame, I've reset it and scaled it on the x-axis, and that's just kind of where I've rotated it. You could super easily do the same with the Z. So here's the Z axis. All I'm doing is I just want it to kind of look elongated like this. Not a big deal. Now that I'm happy with that, well, let's see, am I happy with that? Yes. No. Yes, no, yes. Okay. Okay. Well, we'll do that. I'm going to go back to my 3D viewport, hit I, location, rotation, and scale once again. Beautiful. We have more curves. Don't worry. We love the curves. And now we're going to hit back and we're going to watch it. We're going to see what it looks like. So it comes in towards us and then it goes out. It looks like... Did we not hit scale that first time? Oh, we did. Interesting. Okay. So it's coming towards us, getting larger, going back, and then elongating. Kind of interesting, kind of fun. It's doing something, right? And we're going to change it. We're going to try and maneuver the full frame, the full project, but basically we're going to come back to the Bezier curves and craft them, kind of like I was saying earlier. The only thing, actually, let's scratch that. Let's do this. Something really fun, really simple. All we're going to do is we're going to snap it back into place, which, again, if you hover over your values, you hit backspace, backspace, backspace. Boom. We have our original cube. Actually, we can go even one step further, and instead of hitting backspace and doing all that jazz, we could go to our original frame, copy, and then go to our new space, which after 120 is 180, for those who are still bad at counting, like myself. Yes, it will still be recorded. Sorry, I just looked at the chat. Okay, we're here. Curves, beautiful curves. We're at 180. We're looping. If you noticed, if you're paying attention, we are officially looping. Beautiful. Now let's get to the fun part, finally. Just for personal preference, I'm going to change the end to 180. We will come back to the 240, but right now I'm really enjoying this loop that's happening, so I'm going to stick with the loop. I'm just going with it, guys. We're flowing. We're having fun. And I like the loop. Okay. So now this is exciting. This is where things get really fun. What we're going to do is, like I said earlier, normalize. We're going to hit it again. We've got our normalization. It's gorgeous. Now our animation is just like kind of, it just goes back and forth. Doesn't really make sense. What do? We go in, and this is what I do. There's a lot of ways to do this. This is my personal preference. So, take it how you will. Highlight all of the keyframes at the very beginning, and all you're gonna do, super simple, hit S and scale it on the X axis. And look at those frames, or look at those curves. Oof. Beautiful. Beautiful. You didn't do anything. You hit two buttons and it's gorgeous. Now, one thing that is new with Blender 4, which might be a preference thing. I don't know. I need to look it up because I have to turn this off. But it used to be the case that you couldn't highlight your what's called handles, but for whatever reason now you can. Stay away from these. Don't highlight them. Unless you have something very specific, which we will go into. But for right now, try not to highlight anything other than your actual keyframes, which it's hard to tell. I totally get that. It's hard to tell. But these handles are little circles with they're missing pieces, kind of like a donut. Had to throw in a donut reference there. And then the actual keyframes are just regular circles. They don't have any hole missing whatsoever. So handles, donuts, regular keyframes, they're probably diamond shaped, but they're too small to tell. Anyway, we're in here. We got our guy scaled on the X. Now let's watch it. Let's watch it back. Whoa. Did you see that? Yep. Awesome. So what's happening? Basically, what is going on is you've told Blender that, hey, I want to go from point A to B in a curvilinear fashion. That's what the Bezier is all about. It's exactly what it's doing. But you're crafting it with your scaling on the X. So basically you're saying, hey, instead of just going this normal blah sort of route back and forth and smooth in and out, you're saying, hey, I want to scale it on the X, and I want it to just wait a little bit longer, and then at the end, I want it to go really fast. That is all motion graphics. That's the graph editor. That's motion graphics. That's literally everything. That is what I do every day. That is what every motion graphics artist does, in and out. And there's so much to it, and there's so much nuance and style and everything else. But the core structure, the core fundamentals, is right here. This is it. Scaling on the X, sometimes scaling on the Y, which we'll get into, but this is it. This is our core functionality. This is the big kahuna right here. We can do so much with this. There's endless possibilities. One of my personal favorites is to come in here on the second sort of keyframe, and then all you do is the exact same. You hit S on the X, and you scale it one more time. Wow. Look at these curves. Now they're super crazy. They're like right on top of each other, and they're kind of going nuts. The really cool thing about this is now we have this really, really beautiful motion, and I will turn off depth of field just so we can kind of see this a little better, because we will get back to the depth of field. So we've got our cube selected again, and just you see that, like, that's it. That is the beauty of motion graphics right there. It's in and out. It's so simple. And that's it. All you did was scale on the X at the beginning, scale on X in the middle. Now, what are we going to do? We're going to do it 2 more times. So we're going to go to our second setup here. And again, I don't know why Blender does this. It's got our frame 60 handles all the way in our 120. So we want to slightly scale this down so that our handles are not seen, or at least not in the way, I guess. So now that they're not in the way, we can actually highlight our 120 frames. And again, all we're going to do, scale this guy on the X. And you'll notice it's going both directions. And in some instances, you may not want that. It's really easy to change that. All you do is highlight the specific keyframe that you don't want to move on the back end. Change its handle type to free. This is pretty advanced. I'm just letting you know this in case you do kind of come into this issue. But what you're going to do is now your handles are free from each other. This is useful in cases where you have objects that are moving. It does wreck your smooth Beziers. I don't suggest this, but knowledge is power. So there you go. You have knowledge. I don't know about the power part yet, but we're moving on. So we've got our 120 selected. We've got it scaled on the X. And watch what happens. We're going to hit play. Boom. It comes in super nice. Whoosh, and then it goes back out. You don't even notice. You're like, what happened to the cube, right? It was big and bulky, and it's kind of like in the center of our frame. And then whoosh, beautiful, gorgeous. It scales up. It moves back. It does all these things all at the same time. And it looks great. The cool thing about this, and the real power that you get from the graph editor, is you can turn certain Beziers off, right? The reason why I have all the Beziers on right now is because it's almost always best practice to keep your Beziers similar, even with other objects, and as we'll get into, even with the camera, you almost always want to have your Beziers similar. It is very distracting, and again, we'll get into it, but it's very distracting if you have your Beziers not aligned. However, of course, like all things with art, it can be a style a style choice. So if you're in here on the graph editor again, you can actually toggle these guys off in the exact same way that you would toggle off anything in the actual properties editor, which is great. And so, for instance, say you like the motion, but you don't like the scale. So we're going to come in here and we are going to highlight how our object scales. And we're going to move down and kind of just make it just a little bit different, just a little slightly different. Again, this is not, you don't need to do this. This is, I'm just kind of showcasing what this looks like. So we're going to watch it. Boom. Everything's the same. Then things change. You see how kind of almost jarring that is? And then it just, it kind of looks goofy. But now you know, you can change things independently of one another. Okay, we're going to backspace, 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 all the way back up. Beautiful. What do you think we're going to do for the last one? That's right, we're going to scale it up on the X. Super simple, super easy. And now our loop looks super nice, gorgeous. Looks amazing. And all we did, we're just scaling on the X. Our curves look a little messy. They're a little kind of funky, but because they're all aligned on both the same areas on the key, on the actual time frame of the graph editor and the Beziers, it all matches up and it all syncs. Again, this is what I do every day. This to make any sort of motion, to make any sort of like smooth transitions, this is it. This is the big guy right here. And I'm so sorry, but this is bothering me. Let's get in here. Actually, we have a scale on the it's the bevel. It's always the bevel. Let's see. Let's get a thin bevel. Nope, not thin enough. There we go. Beautiful. Shade smooth. Doesn't seem to make much of a difference. Why? Because our lighting is messed up. Okay. That is motion. That is the graph editor. Yes. Looking at the chat, yes, it's just like After Effects, and it's perfect. I'm not familiar with After Effects. I do know that they have like a Bezier curve, so yeah, I think it's totally the same, or at least similar in a lot of ways. But yeah, I love the graph editor. There's so much you can do with it. Really quickly, I'm just going to change the lighting. So I'm going to click on the default Blender light. I'm going to go in and add a area light, control, and just move it up. Increase the power, something like 50, maybe 150. And then I'm just going to add a little easy bounce light on the bottom so we can kind of get an idea for what's going on here. And that's a little bit on lighting too. Don't want your bounce light to be seen in the view. Awesome. That just makes a really nice, easygoing sort of gradient on the actual object. And if you're feeling crazy, you can also rotate or duplicate rotate on the X, move on the Y, and then actually create a real backdrop for your scene. Again, not necessary. You don't need to go crazy into this at all. It's just kind of helpful. If You want to, though, you can also change the beam shape and spread. Beautiful. Done. Super trendy, super easy. All we did, added a bounce light plane on the bottom, and a backdrop. Done. Nothing too much to that. And beautiful. We've got our guy in here. Kind of looks like we have a drop shadow on the background. We don't want that normally. But now we've lost our pretty gradient. That's okay. It's not what we're here for. Beautiful. So that is the graph editor. One more thing that I've been requested to do is to kind of combine motions. And this is, again, this is the power of the graph editor. You can do so much with it. You can really combine how a lot of things look. So what do I mean by that? You can now that you have your kind of cube, you're excited about the motions, you can come into the empty that's controlling the camera, and you can start animating this guy as well. Normally, if you have an object with a lot of good motion, you normally don't animate the camera, but it can be really fun and exciting to try and play around with it. Always try to play around, see what you like, see what works for you. So we know that this is a loop. So with our empty selected, we're going to go in, insert the keyframe for location and just location, because that's the only information that we're tracking on this empty. So just location. Now we're going to go to the end, and again, because it's a loop, we're going to hit I for location, and now, just like that, we already have two of our spots filled, the very first frame and the very last frame. Now, what's up to us is to sort of art direct where we want this camera to move. And I'm feeling the sort of impact from the cube. It's kind of coming at us, right? It's heavy, it's growing, it's coming at the camera. So I'm going to move the camera back, and that'll be it. And then when we go back to the center, we're going to move with it, and that'll be great. And super simple, easy, nothing crazy. Let's go ahead and watch it before adjusting our Bezier curves. And you already kind of notice that it is, it's kind of jarring. It kind of sticks out just like it did before with the kind of like disjointed scaling of the cube that we talked about. So what do? We kind of want to match up our Bezier curves. You can do this in two ways. You can either kind of just remember which Bezier curve goes where. When you get into a larger project, that kind of gets difficult. So what I like to do sometimes is I will have both these objects highlighted, and then all you have to do is make sure that the object that you want to animate is highlighted. And just like before, you can hide a lot of your curves that you don't want to see, and that really clears up a lot of the graph editor here. So now we've got the camera, and we've got the graph, we've got the cube from before. But you might notice if we do what we did before and we highlight all of our keyframes and try to scale on the X, we're going to end up scaling everything all at the same time. You can do a number of things. You can actually lock your Bezier curves so that you can't touch them. Where did that go? Okay. I hit the wrong guy. So you can lock it, and then try to scale it on the X. You can't, which is great. We don't want to. We just want to adjust our are empty here. So just like before, we're going to scale it on the X kind of to right before it hits our secondary keyframe, and then we're going to scale it backwards until they kind of match up right there. You see that? So they're matching up right there, almost right on perfectly on the 30 line. And now our backside is totally done for us. And we're going to do the same thing on the 120. Scale it up on the X. Beautiful. Those curves almost match perfectly. And then our final curve, we're going to pull up, and we're just going to kind of align it until it hits the 30 again. Beautiful. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and watch it. So you almost don't even notice it because it's moving in the same direction, but had we adjusted any sort of like rotation or anything like that, it would be much more visible. And actually, you know what? That is really easy to do. So why don't we go ahead and just do that really quick? And then we'll take questions because we're kind of getting close to the end here. So we want location again. And another beautiful thing about the graph editor is it remembers your Bezier curves, which is great. We don't have to scale it on the X again. We can kind of just be happy with where it is. And I think for the second one, I'm going to get a little nutty with it. I'm going to just go offshoot. And let's see. Beautiful. It goes perfectly. Okay, so let's watch it. We move down, so we move back, and we move down. So it's kind of like an interesting, it's almost like the TikTok trend, where it's like, dun 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 dun, psh, dun 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 dun, psh. So I guess you could use this for the TikTok trend. But what's really interesting about this is the fact that the camera is moving in sync with the cube. And again, it's just it's a really small thing, and a lot of motion graphics is really tiny tweaks to make something just a little bit better. But ultimately, if you add up enough of these and stack them up and up and up, you make something beautiful. You make something really, really unique and amazing. So that is most of the full live session. I'm going to take questions, and I'll keep this up and running. And yeah. If you are interested in this content, you're interested in seeing more live sessions, please consider subscribing or at least interacting with the Discord, talking about it. We're going to have homework, which is really cool. I don't know if I want to call it homework yet, but basically we're asking that you try this. Me personally, I think what I'd like to see from people is just tweaking it a little, maybe adding in a second cube, maybe adding in a different background or different color, changing, just try and change something. And if you go in and, sorry, some of you might not be familiar with render settings, but if you go in and change your output to PNG, and then go up to the top and hit render animation, you can have an animation, and then post that online, and tag me, Zach Farmer Art, and I will see it, and I'll comment, I'll interact with it. And if you want feedback, if you're looking for feedback, if you're looking for interesting tweak or something fun that you thought was interesting about the graph editor, let me know. I will happily reply back and joke around with you if that's what you're looking for. Yeah. I finally looked at the chat. Yeah, TikTok. That's what we're here for, guys. It's all TikTok content. So yeah, let me know. Let me make sure I've got everything. Q&As, graph editor, homework. That is it. If you guys have a few more questions, I know there's not a ton of you guys left in the group chat. Post homework on your Instagram channel. That is an awesome idea. I will definitely do that. Maybe we will get more people to come to the next live session too. PayPal. No, I'm sorry, I can't. Homework posted on IG. Good idea though. Good idea. Absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it seems like it's just us. So if you have like a that's why we're 3D artists, yeah. Definitely. I'm glad that you guys found it useful. Again, like I said, we have 10 more minutes. If you guys have any more questions about the graph editor, I'm trying to think. Oh, let's do my super awesome move. Okay, I love this. This is one of my favorites. It might take longer than 9 minutes, but wait, typing. Is there something else we want to see here? I have a super awesome move that I love to do. Okay, I'm not gonna put any pressure on you to reply back. I will just start in this. Super awesome move that is also reliant on the Bezier curves. Let's see. Let's go ahead and just duplicate everything so that we don't lose our progress. Oops, that did not work. That still did not work. I forgot how to duplicate. All right, here we go. I'm gonna check the chat. Wanted to ask if there's a bit more like disintegration effect combined with the graph editor camera movement. Yes. So really quickly, you can animate anything. You could animate anything at all, whether it's simulations, geonodes, anything and everything that can have a keyframe can be combined with the graph editor, which is gorgeous when you think about it, because there's so much to it, right? So for instance, if you're looking to add motion graphics to your portfolio or whatever it is, and you want to sort of keyframe a simulation or geonodes or whatever it is, that's all possible, and it's all easily done here. The thing that you have to do is when you keyframe it and then edit your Beziers, you want to do that before simulating. It's just the only thing that you have to do. Let's do this really fast. We're down to 5 minutes now. Oh shoot, and we just lost it. Oh wait, yes, we lost it. Okay. Again, highlight everything, Shift D, grab on the X, and then with all of these new ones selected and not hidden away from view. Oh shoot, okay. Looks like it's not gonna cooperate that way. So once again, highlight everything, make sure everything is unhidden, and then A to select everything, A to select everything, Shift D, grab on the X. Here we go. We are in action. We're going to delete all of the wonderful work we just did. And now triple check. Why is this? Oh, this one's locked. Okay. Delete. Now, here's kind of a fun thing. I'll check the chat one more time. Save as and just continue one file. Then delete files. Yeah, I know. It's like literally panicking with trying to save. Anyway, one really cool thing that you can do, and I'll get into this next week. I mean, it's just us. We have 5 minutes. Not a big deal. I will get into this next week, but one really, really cool thing that you can do is with your first camera selected, go into markers, bind cameras to markers. once again, you will be so surprised at how long this took me to figure out. But now that we found this camera to marker, whenever this frame is coming up, and until you tell it otherwise, it will always be on this camera. However, if at frame 60 you're doing a transition or whatever it is, select your other camera and hit bind camera to marker. You've effectively just created a super easy transition right inside of Blender. And a lot of motion designers don't know this, and it's partly because it's not best practice to have your cameras all running in the same scene, because things get heavy, your curves get heavy, things get complicated. But if you're lazy, guys, if you are if you are lazy, or if you just want to go, you're feeling the curves, keep it in the graph editor. Keep it moving. This is why these tools are here. I personally do this all the time, unless, like you were saying, the simulations and things like that, I almost exclusively just like you said again, save as and then just start over and basically keep everything the same. But if you have something simple like this is so simple. You have one shape, one camera. This is everything right here. Anyway, this is not even my super secret move. Super secret move, and again, we're only on this guy, so we'll just start the whole animation with camera 1 and just checking to see that that's right. Checking the chat. Yeah, I will definitely delete it all. Super secret move. Here we go. All right, we're going to do this really quickly. So we've got our original cube. We know for a fact that we want to loop it. So we're going to animate. Yes, let's not even worry about that guy right now. And then we'll go to the end. We know for a fact we want it to loop. So we already know our first frame and last frame. Technically, if you want a exact seamless loop, what you do is you'll notice Blender starts on frame 1. All you do is move frame 1 to frame 0, and that is your perfect seamless loop. Anyway, sidetrack. On top of the sidetrack, we're going to go to 60. We're going to scale on the Z this time. We're going to have some fun with it. And we're going to do some crazy twists. Boom, bang, done. We're going to go back, or we're going to go forward to 120. This time, let's make a sort of like wall. And this could be cool. There we go. Scaling up. Now we've got our really basic, really boring, same Bezier curves. They're looking totally fine, but super secret move, as I keep saying, I don't know why, we are going to turn, rotate, and scale on the y-axis this time. What is that going to do for us? It's going to do quite a few things. First thing that's going to do is, and there's a couple ways to do this, but we rotate up. I don't always like to rotate perfectly up, but we will get into the fine tuning here in a second. Rotate again, up, scale on the Y, and you might be like, what is this guy doing? I am inverting the Beziers, and this is exactly where the free handles are definitely a place that you want to consider, because things get wonky when you get too deep into this. So I know that was really hard to see, but basically what's happening is our guy is moving almost in slow motion. So it's kind of like super fast anime slow motion, filmic, think like epic movie blockbuster. Let's actually do the whole thing before we start claiming how amazing it is. So we're going to basically do that. Let's go ahead and just free these, handle type free. You can tell this is definitely my super secret move because I've totally forgotten how to do it. Here we are, rotate. Now, instead of highlighting everything on the 60, we're going to highlight the handles. And with these guys, they are a little less accurate. So I'm actually using the G to grab instead of the R to rotate. You can do either or. If you like to be very accurate, you can use R to rotate. Totally fine. Preference. I sometimes like to use the G. It just gets a little bit deeper into that Bezier. And now the thing to keep in mind is just hit, you just want to hit the center here. So all we're trying to do is flatten this center part right here. There's actually another way to do this now that I'm remembering. That's even easier than what I'm doing right now. And it's kind of funny that I totally forgot about this. Once you have your Beziers once you have your Beziers together, like we have here, all you have to do is hit another keyframe. And the keyframe for us is location, rotation, scale. Now, with all of these guys selected, you would scale them on the X. Beautiful. Now, let's go back here and try not to highlight those handlebars. Scale down, beautiful. Scale down, beautiful. All right, looks like it's gonna maybe listen to us. Let's try and zoom in here. So we just need to rotate this so it's a little bit flatter. Rotate this guy so it's a little bit flatter. Beautiful. Okay. Long-winded way. I knew it would take forever, but super slow motion. Watch. Wow. Whoa. You may not have seen that. Wow. Now, there's a little bit more tweaking involved, but this is a really cool effect and a really common way to edit your Bezier curves is just cultivating slow motion in a way that's interesting. And yeah, that's already going to bother me. So all we're doing, again, is we're coming in here and we're creating a place where it's stopping. Well, not stopping. We don't want it to stop entirely because we kind of want the motion to continue. It's almost there. But basically what's happening is kind of like I said before, it's, rotating it would probably help. Oh no. There we go. All right. One more time. So it's kind of creating like this slow motion effect. The idea behind it is to just like have your object come at you or come into frame or position or whatever it is, but then slow down dramatically. And that's kind of the idea behind an inverted Bezier curve. Again, it's not doing exactly what I want. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's not perfect. I think the better way, the more traditional way, is kind of what I was doing before, but we're really running close on time. Um, Thank you from Venezuela. Awesome. Yeah, I think that's really all we have time for, guys. You know what? I don't want to leave you without at least totally knowing what to do here, because that's not really fair. So we're gonna go in. We're gonna super backspace, and default Blender only goes up to 32. Ah. Oh well. Delete everything. Maybe not delete everything. Delete these guys. Haha. There we go. Now we're going to go back to what we were trying to do originally, which is rotate and scale on the Y. And feel free to leave if you have to leave right now, because this is this is what I'm going to be doing here. What is going on right there? Is there two handles, maybe? Maybe. Rotate. It looks like we've got too many things selected. Fun fact, if you just like the viewport, if you click things enough times, it will just simply cycle through all the things. So like in the graph editor, if you just click it enough times, it'll just cycle through what's there to click on. So that's pretty nice. Anyway, let's get through it. Scale on the Y. Grab our other friend here. Hopefully they're still talking to us. Yep, it looks like they are, but they don't want to cooperate. So what do we have to do? We have to do what we did earlier, where we have to identify which ones don't want to talk to us, which would be the Y scale. And let's once again free this handle type. And we'll grab it. Beautiful. All right, again, the idea here is we're trying to invert the Bezier curve, but then also flatten it to a point where it comes up and then it also flattens. The big essence to the style is that you want the top curve to be relatively close to the flatness of the bottom curve. The way to determine that is to see if they're both hitting 30 on the right side. That's normally a good way. You can also just continue scaling it and then rotating it, and that will continue to help. Scale on the Y, rotate. Okay. Now you can already see that these guys don't entirely look the same, which is totally fine. But we're gonna see it anyway. Yep. It looks like the Y scale is doing something funky. Okay. If we only have the Y scale, it looks like the Y scale is not happy with us. It's the only thing animated, but the Z is moving. Are we hiding the Z? No, we left a Bezier open. Left ourselves open. Ugh, how dare we? Let's see. All right. Yes, that would be the case. Okay. So, yeah. Whoa. What is still happening here? Is it the rotation? The X location. Oh no. Okay. Anyway, we'll work we'll work more on this next week. I will have this ironed out for us. Maybe this can be part of your homework if you're still here. Again, the idea is to just invert the Bezier curves. Much simpler than I'm making it right now, because normally everything works together very smoothly. But I will definitely have that for next week. And then, so just play around with it. Have a little fun. Like I said, the big idea is that the object sort of moves really quickly. Again, kind of like in an epic motion, and then it slowly kind of stops and then goes back out to whatever it was doing. So again, if we're looking at the viewport, if this guy is moving back and forth in a transition, it's pretty similar, except it's inverted. Again, not really explaining it clearly, but I will have it for next week for sure. I'm going to check the chat one last time. Awesome. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, or wherever you're from. Have a great day, and I will see you next week. Definitely excited to see you. Have a great one, and I look forward to it. Okay. Bye, guys.